Africans versus African Americans versus Caribbean people. You know, me being 47, about to be 48 in July, when I grew up here in Philadelphia, if you go back 35 years ago, 40 years ago, in the black community on the East Coast corridor, you had a lot of Caribbean people, a whole lot. They've been here forever, just as long as we've been here, because we've been brought and sold and traded, and they've been here for a long time. But then you start having Africans here, like mainly on the East Coast, Philadelphia, Liberia, and Ghana. And when I was a kid growing up, we didn't have these separations like that. I need you guys to listen to me. I'm going to take you back 35 and 40 years ago, not what you see today, and then bring you up to speed, right? Growing up, when I lived on the block, I had homies from Trinidad, homies from Jamaica, Barbados, Dominican Republic, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. That was the African. Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. And we know Liberia and Sierra Leone, why they were here for the most part in Ghana. And we were all black. We knew that the kids talked different. We knew that we had we had different cultures, but there was no division amongst us. We sat outside. Our grandmothers sat outside and talked. We came home from school. Different grandmoms watched us. We ate at each other's house. There was no dating white people. None of that stuff existed. It was just black people. Now, we made fun of Africans and stuff like that in our ignorance when we were young. But some of the names that we called Africans, we called ourselves that. All those names like those names that we call Africans. What's the one name? What's the one name that they always say? Oh man, I can't even remember. It'll come back to me. But we called each other a lot of names, but those were jokes as kids for the most part. Growing up, we went to school together. We had sex with each other, made babies, got money together. We did everything together. Some of my closest friends is from Liberia and Jamaica. And, they've been here so long, they so immersed into African-American culture, you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. Yeah, we call them African booty scratchers. But when we call them African booty scratchers, we only called them that because we called each other that first. That's all the stuff the white man called us. All the things the white man called us, we called each other that. You know what I mean? And a lot of the Africans, once they came here and they got immersed in the culture and they found out that African American culture is like a roast. We had a roast culture. They start learning to roast and joke back. They fell right in line because we never really had anything against Africans. What you see today is something different. Now I have a homie, my homie Alan. He's from the Ivory Coast, and we had a conversation. And in this conversation, he explained some stuff to me that at first I didn't understand or agree with. But once he broke it down, I kind of understood where he was coming from. And he told me, he said, brother, he said, a lot of these Africans that come over here acting like coons and marrying white and separating from blacks and looking down on blacks, you have to understand African colonization. He said, if you can in your heart forgive some of them, this is his perspective. He said, but look at it from this perspective. He said, you guys were stolen from Africa, brought over here and was enslaved, right? This is what he's telling me. He said, but you guys don't understand colonization in West Africa. He said, they brought the French guy there, and when they were kids, the only thing that you could learn about was French culture. Nothing about your tribal culture or your culture. You could have your language, but for the most part, they taught you French was better. He said, so when he left Africa, he went to France first, and then he came to America. He said all he ever wanted to do was go to school to be a lawyer and marry a white woman. And I said, what? He said, because that's all he knew until he came to America and got immersed in our culture amongst us, right? He told me, he said, a lot of those people over there are coons and sellouts because they deal with tribalism. He said when he was growing up, he didn't grow up around white folks. He never saw white folks as his enemy. He saw other black people as his enemy because of warfare, conflict, and tribalism. He said in Africa, you got different tribes that don't see themselves as the same people at all. Where he said when he came to America, we all see each other as the same as brothers. He says, so the way we view Africa, Africa don't view itself that way, right? And he's explaining to me, George, he's saying that inner tribalism and wars amongst their groups in their country, they see themselves as the enemy. They didn't see this white man as the enemy because most of them wasn't educated to understand understand what white supremacy was. And a lot of them didn't even know our history and the way he's explaining to me, right? So I got another homie that's from Mauritania. Man, this brother, man, is on it. Now, they are still enslaved today under pale Arabs. And he hate white people. He hate Arabs. My homie from Mauritania. I mean, if you talking to him, it's like you talking to an African American. When you talk about the experiences of what happened to them and still happening to them in Mauritania, what the white man did to us here and what the Arab is doing to the African there, I learned something, right? And talking to these brothers. I had a brother from Zimbabwe. He can't stand white supremacy and the British. When talking to certain Africans in certain countries, you get a different understanding for them because the African in Zimbabwe feel the same way the African American feels towards white supremacy. The African in Ivory Coast, a lot of them don't even understand white supremacy. But I'll get back to that in a minute because my homie Alan explained this to me. The African in Mauritania hates white supremacy and die every day trying to fight it, right? But they don't promote it on the TVs here. And they only let the Sambos come through to undermine us and today, to undermine us and replace us because those Sambos that's coming from Africa and the Caribbean, when they come here, they don't have the same axe to grind against the U.S. government as we do. So it would be the same as if we packed up and left and went back to Zimbabwe or went to Ivory Coast or went to Mauritania 1,000,000 strong. The government would treat us differently because we don't have an axe to grind or we're not caught up in the tribalism the way they are. So we would outperform them. But this is the way white supremacy works. It keeps us moving past each other and not us linking up and, to have a global black dominance, right? But he told me, he said, in the Ivory Coast, you have rebels and freedom fighters all on the ground, but American TV don't show it because they don't want black Americans to see this because that'll make you want to come to Africa more. He said they let the coons come through and they show you the other aspect. They show you like the villages and the poor villages to make you not want to come. So I have friends that broke this stuff down. In the Caribbean here on the East Coast, for the most part, we still kick it. We still getting along. This internet stuff with everybody arguing amongst each other. Here in Philly, Jamaicans and black Americans are like brothers, man. We get along great on the East Coast. Haitians, we all rock with each other. Now, do you have some coons? Yeah, you got some coons out here selling out. Sambo, not coons, Sambo, excuse me. Because let me explain to you guys what a coon is. A coon, by definition, is a person that knows who his enemy is, but he's either too lazy or cynical to do anything about it. A Sambo is a sellout that understands who his enemy is, but he's like a child to his enemy. He's not willing to do anything. You sick boss, yeah, we sick boss. That's a Sambo. So stop using the term coon when you talk about sellouts. Talk about Sambos. Most of the coons are the guys that can quote white supremacy, quote his enemy, but he won't work with his own brother. Not the one coming in with the white girl talking trash about black people. That's the Sambo. But we got to understand how this thing works, man, and the traps and the things that they do to set us up, man, and how they setting us up. But like I said, I'm going to do videos with a couple of my African homies, man, and they telling me that when you in Africa and Zimbabwe, Mauritania, you got freedom fighters that watch us, that know our history, and they on the ground fighting every day, but they don't promote it on the TV. They fighting against the government and white supremacy. But the white supremacy is allowing the sellouts and coons to come through. But again, in closing, some of them don't understand through tribalism. They see other Africans as their enemies and not the white man, because the white man come bearing gifts. He come with his religions. He comes with his medicines, so-called, and allow you to come to America like he's giving you a fresh start while he's stealing your resources. But that's the next video. But that's my take on it. I understand FBA and certain things like that, but we can't lose sight of the way white supremacy is working. That's all I'm saying. So remember, leave your comments in the comment section. Make sure y'all smash that like button. Street Media TV. Remember, I love y'all. Till the next time. Peace.